Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today on this Thursday morning. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm doing well. I just told you I read my horoscope. I'm waiting for you to read yours.
Oh, well, while we're speaking of magic, I actually attended a magic show last night.
How was it?
It was very fun. I love magic shows.
Really? Oh, I learn something new about you every day. Let's learn what's on your radar today. How about that one?
Okay. I don't think it's really a mystery why the Democratic Party has lost young men, but apparently the Democrats think they need data. They need insights. They need spreadsheets and charts and polling results. They need to talk, to study Trump-loving Gen Z dudes in a laboratory and find out how they can win them back, preferably without doing the difficult work of changing anything about the policies of the Democratic Party, which probably isn't going to work. Now, on Rising, we've previously discussed reports that Democratic donors are spending as much as $20 million on a plan to study young men and lift up social media influencers and entertainers who speak to their issues, maybe even a liberal Joe Rogan. This is a plan, by the way, that's been universally panned by right and left. Everybody who knows anything about Joe Rogan's appeal understands that he arose organically. He was not hired or discovered by elites. He deviates from political orthodoxies with a frequency that would make him instantly anathema to progressive cultural tastemakers if they actually found someone like him with mass appeal. But I digress. Here's the latest news. Politico obtained some of the early data from these Democratic efforts to understand young men, which, by the way, is officially named Speaking with American Men Project, or SAM for short. Can't help but laugh, but it's a real thing. Anyway, Politico says, quote, the results of an initial round of research shared exclusively with Politico, including 30 focus groups and a national media consumption survey, found many young men believe that neither party has our back. As one black man from Georgia said in a focus group, participants described the Democratic Party as overly scripted and cautious, while Republicans are seen as confident and unafraid to offend. Democrats are seen as weak, whereas Republicans are seen as strong. That's according to the co-founder of the project, Elise Hogue. She also says young men spoke of being invisible to the Democratic coalition, and so you've got this weak problem, and then you've got this I don't think they care about me problem, and I think the combination is kind of a killer. Researchers went on to note that young men, quote, described how the COVID pandemic left them isolated and socially disconnected. They also said they now feel overwhelmed by economic anxiety, making traditional milestones like buying a home or saving for kids' college feel impossible. The degree to which those economic concerns are also impacting how they think about themselves and quote-unquote success of being a man and living up to their own expectations or expectations of family and society. There's another layer of economic anxiety that I don't think I fully saw until now, end quote. Young men's feelings of crisis are connected to their exodus from the party. Politico continues, Sam's national survey found that just 27% of young men viewed the Democratic Party positively. 43% of them viewed the Republican Party favorably. Okay, time for some analysis. First off, none of this is at all surprising to me, like not even one bit. I don't know how much of the $20 million was spent doing this research, but I could have told Democratic strategists all of this over lunch or coffee, maybe drinks, if they asked me. All this stuff is pretty obvious. No, the Democratic Party is associated with the harmful policies of the pandemic. And it's looking like those policies are disproportionately disliked by young people and also by young men. They were disproportionately affected. The Democrats are also increasingly associated with a transfer of wealth from young people to old people. The Democrats are the party that keeps saying no cuts to Medicare ever, no changes to Social Security. We have to keep fully paying for old people no matter what, even as things that young people need, housing, childcare, education, keep getting more and more expensive. The boomers rigged the entire economic system in their favor, and nobody in government wants to cross them because they're such a large and important voting bloc. But Republicans are at least a little bit more interested, maybe, in rethinking some of this government spending, and I suspect young people are rewarding them for it. Generational warfare, Lindsay, that's what I want to wage. We have a massive transfer of wealth from young, healthy people to older, sicker people. And look, I understand that there isn't a lot of political will to start throwing seniors off of Medicare and Social Security. Fine, but something has to be done to rebalance the scales in favor of young people. Young people are delaying starting families because they can't afford to buy homes. Childcare has gotten astronomically expensive. Education has gotten astronomically expensive. The access to an easy middle-class lifestyle is out of reach. It's not out of reach for every young person. I'm not buying into sort of progressive talking points, but things that they need to start off on have gotten more expensive, as they're still asked to contribute more and more of their incomes to building up this entitlement state, this welfare state for the elderly who homes cost peanuts when they were buying them, but we have all this zoning regulation that stops anything but from being built, and so we have a housing supply constraint. Nothing new can be built. They made the system that way, and still they're extracting wealth from young people. I think that is one reason, understated reason, and the COVID policies are another, that young people don't trust the Democratic Party. They know that when push comes to shove, they will continue this system. Republicans mostly vote to continue this system as well. You can see how Elon Musk's argument that the bill has to be balanced is going nowhere.
Support both parties, but I feel like we paid money to state the obvious. Okay, I hear you loud and clear on that point. But now we have real data that Democrats really can't ignore. So like I always say, what's the plan forward? And I think there should be a really clear plan forward. So, you can naturally show up in some of these spaces like gaming and sports on YouTube. Show up and actually do the 3-hour interview with the people that we have in place right now. You don't need to find somebody to support you. Trump didn't seek out Trump didn't seek out Joe Rogan to support him. He just went on the show and talked for 3 hours. Try that strategy, just showing up as yourself. People might actually like who you are. Focus on the kitchen table issues. So we can talk about, like you said, overtime pay, rent, family leave. They can start to take over those conversations that Trump started and never executed completely, right? We can start to take over some of these issues that require the people in our base that we're talking about, the young people that are affected in full, and see them through. I also think there's a big problem with communicating respect. A lot of men don't want to be, or people, young people specifically, don't want to be talked down upon, don't want to feel condescended. And so if we change the tone a little bit about how we're talking to people who maybe don't understand or don't fully grasp the social issue, maybe just break it down kindly and clearly, especially as an authoritative figure who's studied and spent time researching the communities that are most vulnerable or affected by some of the issues that Democrats are standing on, break that down in conversation. Like you and I talk about different things. I think people can take more away from that rather than talking to them and just always pointing fingers like we see. That's where a lot of commentary has gone, just very, disrespectful, no regard for someone who doesn't even understand a different side. And then I also think you have to have those core values and craft messages with conviction. You can't be swaying every time the tide turns. You can't, quit the party. You can't throw people under the bus. You have to stay tried and true and figure out what the Democratic strategy is. And I think it's time that people get in line and just really get back to the core of things, because the research just proves what you said. We can't take just what people online are saying. We can't just sometimes we don't want to listen to some of the polls around election season because we find that they're not accurate, like in the case of Hillary Clinton and President Trump. And so they wanted to do their own independent research, and this is what they came up with. And I actually think this should be a good first step to actually making real change for the party, and maybe not just listening to people online, but actually seeing men speaking up, saying what they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with you on certainly speaking longer in the podcast format is a strategy Democrats should pursue. You can see which ones get it, that Pete Buttigieg is doing that, Gavin Newsom is doing that, Bernie Sanders has always been open to doing that. Kamala Harris is not doing that, but still thinks she should be the leader of the Democratic Party, as I understand, which is kind of questionable to me.
We have a long way to go. We'll see.
We shall see if she's still in the mix.
Up next, a federal judge halted the deportation of Mohammed Salman's family. That's next.